everybody. This is Dr. Marion Sanchez, and we're flying high. And when I say flying high, I mean really high, not on that other stuff they call high, but flying high because of the things we do. And the people that I have here, you always fly high with them. And the gentleman that I have today is one of those persons that is very involved in helping people. He's doing a lot of things. He's with the Union City, and he's in a committee there, and he helps quite a bit. And he's also running for office. But as you know, I don't do political stuff here, but I just want you to know the person and his family and himself and what's happening. So I want you to meet Mr. Harpal Mann. Good to have you,
Dr.
friend.
Sanchez. Thank you for inviting me to the show. It was an honor and pleasure to meet you, and I am excited, to be here at Chabot College. Just having a quick tour of this studio and looking at some of the most talented people that run this studio. This is a fantastic studio. It's a hidden gem, and we need to do more to make sure that this studio gets all of the exposure and is utilized properly so that it could help in this part of the world, especially the Silicon Valley and the high-tech economy.
Well, we're really up and going, not up and coming, but up and going.
Up and going.
And when I say flying high, that's the name of my program here. And I mean, we're really going to go high with people like yourself involved that really care, about people and the government and what's happening. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So first, let's start out with, tell me about your family. How many wives do you have? 10 wives? Or just
I have one wife.
Okay.
So I'll just give you a background about myself. I was born in Kenya, East Africa. That's a country in the eastern part of Africa, for those who don't know. Our past president, President Obama's father, was also born in Kenya. So Kenya is was a British colony, and my grandparents came from India, and they went there as farmers and as business people in the early 1900s.
I interrupt for a second, but I want you to keep going. But what languages do you speak?
So I speak a number of languages. Obviously, English is my first language. I speak Punjabi, which is the Indian language that my family spoke. I speak Hindi, which is another Indian language. I speak Gujarati, that's the third Indian language. So from an African languages, I'm fluent in Swahili, which is the national language of Kenya. Obviously, the official language is English, but the national language is Swahili. That's used in Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda. And I speak two other African dialects. One is Kalenjin and one is Luya.
Okay. Do you speak any Spanish? Or
I took Spanish. I lived in Madrid for a short time, and then also from the border across from Gibraltar in a small town called La Línea. La Línea. So I was staying in Spain and crossing into Gibraltar. I was working on a project there in the Mediterranean. It's a beautiful part of the world. And then I also took French in college, so both Spanish and French. So yo habla español poquito.
But you sound pretty good. Poquito, mucho poquito. And anyway, I kind of interrupted you a while ago. You were talking about your family and so forth.
Yes. So from Kenya, I came to the United Kingdom. I did my secondary education in the UK in London, and then from London, I came to California as an international student, and I joined the University of Southern California. And at the University of Southern California, I got a bachelor's in computer engineering and a master's in computer engineering. As an international student, obviously, our funds are limited. USC being a private university, it was quite expensive. So I worked nights at the computer center to pay for my living expenses at USC. And then during the summer, I would take courses at the Los Angeles Community College, because some of the general education courses were cheaper at LACC than at USC. And which is why I'm always an advocate for people taking courses at community colleges, because you can take all of those courses at a community college before transferring to a USC or a four-year university. After USC, I got sponsored by a green card by the university. I moved to UCLA, which is a rival school
Right. Yeah.
of USC, and I started working on a PhD in computer science.
Uh-huh.
So I was there for about 2 years at UCLA, and then I joined a startup company called Xylem, which is almost like working on a PhD. We were working on cutting edge technology.
Xylem. You used that as part of your curriculum?
I used it as part of my curriculum. It was basically designing, I believe, over a 2-year period at Xylem, which went public, and we were eventually acquired by a French company called Alcatel. Alcatel is a company that basically was in the forefront of the telecommunications industry. So in an 18-month period, I had 22 designs, meaning I designed and invented 22 products. And during that time, I have 6 patents that are currently searchable in networking, security, fault tolerance. After Alcatel, I was I spent some time trying to start up my own company. Obviously, you're young and you want to do something on your own.
That's a tough go.
So
isn't it? You did that.
I took a sabbatical and went to New Zealand and tried to start a company there. We almost got funded, and unfortunately, the events of September 11th, we were about a week from getting funded, but a foreign government did not want to fund a company based in America, given the fact that we just had September 11th. So I was quite disappointed. I'd lost a lot of the money that I had made.
But and I want to offer this too. As you talk about that, we've interviewed a lot of people, and things hit sometimes that knock you back a little bit. But you seem the type of person that comes back and you fight, and that's what you've done.
Yeah.
And maybe these bad things that happen, mistakes that they made or whatever, you can now use it as something to stand on and go,
Absolutely, Dr. Sanchez. And this, this is the thing, I'm a fighter. And I believe for every problem there's a solution. I don't give up. So I came back, I rejoined Alcatel, and then I moved to the Bay Area in 2000 while we were still working in LA. So I was commuting between LA and the Bay Area. And then I joined another startup company here called Icanos Communications. So for a lot of the viewers at home, you probably know of the ADSL, which was the first technology for broadband.
What's it called? ADSL?
ADSL, for connectivity to the internet. So I worked on a project that went to the next level. That was VDSL, meaning you could transmit video over all telephone lines. So I worked on a project with Icano, but I was based in Paris, which was a fantastic experience for viewers. If you want to travel, Paris is a place to visit. It's a fantastic place. And so I shuttled between Belgium in a small place called Antwerp, which is the diamond capital of the world, the wholesale diamond capital. I actually didn't know about it, but if you go to Antwerp, you'll find all of the diamonds that end up there.
You can go on the ground and pick them up like this?
Well, if you end up at the train station in Antwerp, there's all shops of diamonds. But really? I worked in a joint project with Alcatel, and we designed a VDSL system because Europe had old telephone lines, and they needed to compete with the cable companies to transmit video signal over 80-year-old copper lines. And so we were successful. A project that was designed for 2 years, I was able to complete it in 13 months. And then I enjoyed traveling in Europe because we had to go to various carriers. I went to Amsterdam for KPN. I went to T-Mobile in Deutsche Telekom, which is in Germany. I spent about 2 months in Madrid, in Spain. It's a fantastic place, a lot of museums. You have to learn Spanish if you live in.
Do you stay in contact with these people now?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have friends.
Let me tell you what I'm doing. One thing, I've got a project myself called World Peace.
Yes.
And I've contacted different countries. I hope to set up this World Peace as a class in universities, and they grow out of it, because there's no specific curriculum in it, you know, but it's who, what, where, why, when, you know.
Mm.
And when you say who, you know, it's people of different ethnic studies and what have you.
Yeah.
But this might tie in. This is why I bring this up now, because with what you're doing, you know, it is about world peace, you know. That's what
It
you're
is.
looking for in a way.
It is, you know, Dr. Sanchez, you know, I, you know, was born in Africa. My, you know, ancestors were from India.
Yeah.
I grew up in a British system.
Yeah.
I ended up, you know, in the greatest country in the world. But I also have traveled, you know, extensively
yeah.
in Europe, in Australia and Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you know, in Africa too, and the United States.
Yeah.
What I see is we have a lot more in common than, you know, what divides us.
Yeah, the different
People-
countries more in common.
People are the same everywhere.
Oh.
Whether you are in Paris,
Yeah.
whether you're in Madrid, whether you're in London,
Yeah.
whether you're in Auckland, New Zealand, whether you're in Nairobi, Kenya, or
Put it there right now.
you know,
'Cause I'm in the same boat, you know. We have more in common than differences.
Than
And you're right,
differences.
you've traveled and you know it. You don't just say, "Oh, I think so." You know so.
I know so, and one of the things, you know, I've been blessed with is the fact that I grew up in different cultures. I have a very different perspective of life.
Yeah.
I look at a glass that's half full and half empty. I look at a positive in every community.
Yeah.
I'm an optimist. When I see a child who's trying to read, I look at the fact, how can I help this child?
Yeah.
When I see a child who's working and then, you know, doesn't have the money especially in developing countries, they have to sit under Latin to study. I look at that as positive development.
Yeah. And the thing you said too, if you see a child they're trying to read, trying hard to read, it kind of, you know, you wish you could help, but you do in different ways, I suppose. It's not
Yes.
that you go to the child and help,
Yeah.
but you might, but say, wait a minute, where is the ways that you can help
Yes.
this child plus maybe 10 others or 20 others? So it spreads, you know, from
It
your
spreads, yeah.
one
So
child to
part of, you know, I mean, with an engineering background, and then, you know, as part of my service to the community, I also, you know, serve as a planning commissioner in the city of Union City. And that's a completely different part compared to engineering. So as a planning commissioner, it's a very, very responsible position in which there's developers who want to build, you know, in the city. There's homeowners who want to build, and there's the community who has, you know, whose interests you have to protect to make sure that, you know, you don't have too many buildings, you don't have too much traffic, but you also have to balance, you know, between affordable housing to make sure that people have access.
Right.
Now, the other thing about planning is, during my tenure as chairperson, a lot of big projects in Union City were implemented, and we started the general plan, which is planning for the next, you know, 25 years. So it's a general plan for 2040. What would the city look like? In that, we look at, you know, population demographics, we look at housing, we look at transportation, we look at health,
Right.
we look at jobs and the economy, and then, you know, the quality of life. You know,
Yeah,
what do we do
that's-
for our seniors?
Yeah.
What do we do for our students? What do we do for parks and recreation?
Yeah.
So all of those things. So that gives you a completely different perspective, that you now put yourself, you know, 20 years out to see what would the world be like. And obviously there's data, right? You extrapolate this data and look into analytics.
Yeah.
And then based on that, as you see, okay, California is one of the most diverse states. Union City is one of the most diverse cities that I've been in.
Right.
There is pretty much, 4 or 5 dominant ethnicities, but no one, is a majority. You've got, a 20% Filipino population. You've got a 20% Latino population. You've got a 18% Indian population, and you've got a 20% Caucasian population,
Yes.
and then you've got a 6% African American population. So it's one of the most diverse places
Yeah.
in the world, and I truly enjoy living in Union City, and you know, and the same thing I see, you know, in Hayward, the diversity, the changes that have taken place. Obviously, you know, the economy has changed, has shifted.
Yeah.
And one of the things when I look at solutions, I don't look at a solution for an individual. I look at a solution, how can this be replicated?
Yeah. Yeah.
And at this time, I look at, you know, all of our communities, whether it's in Hayward, whether it's in Union City, whether it's in Oakland,
Right.
is what can we do to make sure our communities benefit
From all this,
from our economy. You know, we say California is the 6th largest economy in the world. That means there should not be poverty. There should not be homelessness.
Yeah.
There should not be, you know, people who are looking for assistance.
Yeah.
So there is this divide, and it's something that, you know,
Yeah.
bothers me, that there are those of us who are successful,
Yeah.
but then there's a lot of people who, you know, don't have that opportunity.
Right.
And
And
when
you-
I look at solutions, I design
Uh-huh.
solutions to make sure that there's access for
Yeah.
everyone.
And it is pretty awesome, you know, like what's being done in terms of, I work with the Free Wheelchair Mission,
Yes.
and that is to send wheelchairs all over the world.
Yeah.
I did it with Mexico, Australia. I'm looking for Afghanistan to send to Cuba, and well, those two right now. And you and I can talk more about this later. But
Absolutely.
you know, there's people who they're not going to be helping you do much of anything. Maybe, because I know one preacher who received these wheelchairs, because I had him sent to Mexico,
Yeah.
and I had him in Australia, those two places. And I didn't pay for it, thank goodness. I couldn't afford that, but I facilitated it. And maybe between you and I, we can facilitate more stuff going to different places.
Absolutely.
And this is something that's for them out there, you know, and maybe some of it comes back some way to help you out, you know, but that's not the object there. The object is to help those people who need it, period. And I want to help those people. I want to see that youngsters get help too, because the youngsters are the ones that are kind of sparking
Yes,
things and making
yes,
things go. So
yes.
you as one, and I see you in this picture too, as one person can influence, you know, hundreds of
Yes.
persons, and those hundreds of others. So
Yeah,
I look at it
yeah.
that way.
Thank you. You know, I mean, I've always, you know, I mean, despite having, you know, a background as an engineer or in science,
Mhm.
but you know, I look at the community around me,
Yeah.
and outside of your work, the most fulfilling thing for me is the interaction between the community, the
Yeah.
cultures. You know, when I did my first company, I spent about a year in New Zealand, and Dr. Sanchez, I got to know the native people of New Zealand. They're called the Maoris. So the Maoris are a very, very, you know, interesting people, and I got very close with them. And you know, it's a very close-knit group of people,
Yeah.
and they work with native peoples around the world, you know, including from South America to you know, Canada and the United States.
Yeah.
But they are very proud people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that they wanted me to work on was the preservation of the language, of the Maori language. How can we use computer science or artificial intelligence to make sure that the language is preserved?
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
thought that was a fantastic idea. And one of the things we thought about was, you know, your mobile devices, right? They could be used as gadgets for learning. You know, if you want to learn Espanol, if you want to learn Italian, if you want to learn Maori language.
And I think the whole idea there that you're taking to is learning these different things, it brings us closer together, because you
Absolutely.
know what they're feeling, thinking, and so forth, you know.
Yeah.
Like when I traveled to Russia, for instance, I ran groups there of
Yeah.
10 kids.
Yeah.
I had a translator, a woman that translated.
Yeah.
And it was pretty awesome, you know, to get to know these people. And you think, oh, the Russians, oh, they're doing this. And, you know, the Russians from the heart, from the soul, you know, and you talk with them. And this is what I want to do, and this is what I see you doing
Yeah.
too, you know, creating a world peace.
Peace, yeah.
World understanding of each other.
Yes, and in something that's you know, very interesting here. My wife is a neurointensivist. She's a physician, you know, who is a neurologist, but has a fellowship in neurointensive care. And one of the things that they learn, you know, with the brain is that the more languages you can speak, it helps you from from some of the brain related diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia and others. So to all of the young people out there in college, if you complain and say, why do I need to take Spanish? Why do I need to take French? Why do I need to take a second foreign language? Please, for heaven's sake, take the foreign language, as many languages as you speak.
Yeah.
It is good for you. It's good for your brain because the neurons are continuously making connections.
Yeah.
So I would encourage everyone out there, pick a book, learn a different language.
Yeah.
Don't look at a language that Spanish is is for people from Latin America or Mexicans.
Yeah.
They are just like us. Okay, this is a border. This is all artificial. At the end of the day, I see God in them as I see in myself. And please learn a different language as you can.
That everybody out there listening and watching the show, that you take that into mind too, learning different things, you learn more about yourself and you bring people closer together. And that's what you're saying, more or less.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, I think.
So
now, what do you kind of propose in the future? What kind of things do you want to be doing? Have you looked into what you're doing now, you're going to do and so forth? Yes.
So one of the, number of things that I'm looking at in the future is I'm looking at knowledge, right? I'm looking at learning, and how can we make sure that our young people have the tools to learn, number one. Our educators have the resources to make sure that, if I am expecting you to teach my child, then I should make sure that you're compensated well.
Right.
I mean, I can't expect you to produce the next generation and expect teachers and educators and people who work very hard in these institutions, whether it's Chabot College or Cal State East Bay or UC Berkeley, is to make sure that they are they are taken care of. Now, I'm looking at technology. I'm looking at technology basically as a way of how do we get people around the world, including from our own communities, to benefit from the changes. There is change happening every day. Okay, when I was working as an engineer, we were looking at change about 6 months to about 9 months. Now with software driven solutions, the change is much faster. And you've got to keep up with it. Now the thing is, change is inevitable.
Right, yeah.
So what I am working on is I'm working on a plan to make sure that the maximum number of people benefit from the changes that are occurring in our society today, whether it's jobs, whether it's what kind of training do you need to be successful, whether it's dissemination of information regarding your health, cultures, bringing people together.
Yeah, it's like what you're saying is, people are tuned into what's going on. A nurse, a doctor looks this and then that. But what they're also doing, and you're suggesting, study out here, what's going to happen next, because in technology now, things are just boom, boom, boom. And before you know it, you're about 5 years ahead.
So, I mean, I will share something that's I'm not going to take credit for it, but it's my wife. She has started a new field in medicine. It's called teleneurology.
Okay.
So she stays at home, and she has a camera and a computer, and she's basically been, she's gone through certification of all of the different hospitals in, I think, almost like 15 states. So she serves the rural population of different states, whether it's in Arizona, Nevada, Ohio, California, places like Eureka that do not have a specialist. And so when someone goes with a stroke to a hospital, there isn't a neurologist there, but they call her, and then she examines the patient through a camera, obviously talking to a doctor or nurse on the other side. And with her field, since it's the brain, she looks at scans, right, if they have a MRI or a CAT scan. So she can look at that scan and determine, okay, what needs to be done. Does the patient get TPA? Do they get admitted? Do they get flown out to a bigger hospital? And it doesn't pay as much as going there, but this is
But it's so important.
It's
yeah.
important. It's serving those communities
Yeah.
that people don't want to go to. But technology is enabling that. And I'm actually very proud of the fact that she decided to take a huge pay cut
Yeah.
to work with us, because at the end of the day, there's fulfillment. There's
Yeah.
fulfillment about somebody who is not going to get, you know, an expert. And this is just here in the United States. We're not talking about the world.
Yeah.
Now, this technology can basically be pushed around, you know, different countries, whether it's Mexico, Latin America, India, wherever.
Yeah.
So if they want to talk to a specialist over a
Yeah.
camera and a computer system, as long as there's a nurse or a doctor on the other end,
Right. Yeah.
you'll be able to do
Well,
that.
as you and I talked beforehand, I
Yeah.
sure indicated to you that I'd love to have your wife come and do her thing here, because that's looking ahead, you know. And this
Yeah.
is what I like in our program here that we do. Is I talk to people like yourself
Yeah.
and others in this, not the quite same boat, different boats, you know, but doing a lot of the similar things, you know. And this I want to get out to the public,
Yeah.
so that they begin to know. And Chabot College, I want you all folks to know that we have one of the bigger stations as far as channel 2 or 5 or 7 or whatever, and we're kind of growing into those kind of things. And the programs we have, like with you and my interviews and so forth, we're going to be up there. We're going to make it go, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And Sue Joy, our head honcho here, he was here with us earlier.
Yeah.
Just got back from vacation. He's a go-go man, I'll tell you. He's really inspired everybody here, and we're hiring more people to work here at Chabot College and to get the ball rolling. And the main thing I want to do now is to thank you for being here and to share all that you have shared with us, my friend. And you and I will be talking more later on, but at this point I think we're almost ready to say adios, señores and señoritas. And how else do you say that in other languages?
So in Swahili
Señora,
we say señora, señorita. So we say in Swahili is kwaheri, in Punjabi is dhanyawad, and
Well,
then in
you
French is au
got to
revoir.
educate me now, so I'll understand.
So I'll take this opportunity first of all to thank you, Dr. Sanchez,
It's been my
for
pleasure.
giving me the opportunity to see Joy and the wonderful staff here at Chabot College. I will assure you that this is an eye-opener for me.
Okay.
This is a fantastic asset here at Chabot College, and
Well,
you have my support, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure that this studio
and that's why
gets to the next level. And the people who run this, the most important thing is not the studio, but it's the people who run the studio.
right, exactly.
And I think you guys have done a fantastic job. So keep up the work and go Chabot College. And
And I want to triple thank you for being here, because you've added a lot to the things that we want to do, and it's just like a lot of eye-opening stuff. And like what your wife does too is awesome, and she'll be here with us on the station too sometime. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say goodbye, and I want to thank my friend here for being with us and enlightening us on so many issues. And I will see you next week on Flying High.
Hi.